The Conclave's Hall of Choosing was a place of immense power. Each cycle, representatives from dominant species selected champions from lesser civilizations, beings to be tested, trained, and sometimes used as proxies in interstellar conflicts. It was both a tradition and a strategic game. This cycle, the hall buzzed with anticipation. At its center stood a shimmering projection of Earth, blue, green, and utterly unimpressive compared to the technological marvels surrounding it. Primitive, hissed a crystalline delegate. Emotionally unstable, added a telepathic cluster. Physically inferior, concluded a towering reptilian warlord. Yet one figure remained silent. She stood apart, tall, elegant, with bioluminescent markings rippling across her skin like slow lightning. Her name was Illyra Voss, a strategist from the Karathi Dominion, one of the most feared powers in the Conclave. Illyra was known for one thing: she never made mistakes. So when her turn came, the chamber quieted. "You may choose your champion," intoned the Conclave overseer. Illyra stepped forward, her gaze scanning the database of human profiles. Thousands flickered past, soldiers, scientists, leaders, criminals. Then she stopped. A murmur rippled through the chamber. "That one," someone whispered. Displayed before them was a human male. Unremarkable, slightly underweight. No military training. No significant accolades. No extraordinary intelligence scores. Name: Ethan Cade. Occupation: maintenance technician. Psychological profile: resilient but non-aggressive. Threat level: negligible. Illyra's eyes narrowed, a faint smile touching her lips. "I choose him." The chamber erupted. "Absurd." "A mistake. You insult the Conclave." Illyra raised a single hand. Silence returned instantly. "I do not choose strength," she said calmly. "I choose potential." The overseer hesitated, but protocol was clear. "So be it. The human, Ethan Cade, is now bound as your champion." The human who didn't fit. Ethan Cade was not ready for the galaxy. One moment, he had been fixing a broken coolant line in a dim industrial facility on Earth. The next, he was standing in a hall of impossible architecture, surrounded by beings that defied every law of biology he knew. "Okay," he muttered, blinking rapidly. "Either I passed out, or I'm in the worst dream ever." Illyra approached him. Up close, she was even more intimidating, taller, radiant, otherworldly. "You are Ethan Cade," she said. "Yeah, and you are definitely not HR." Illyra tilted her head, intrigued. "You display humor under extreme stress." "Yeah, well, screaming didn't feel productive." For a moment, something flickered in her expression. Approval. The first trial. The Conclave wasted no time. Champions were tested immediately, placed in simulated combat scenarios against other selected beings. Ethan's opponent? A genetically engineered warrior from the Vrax Dominion. 8 feet tall. Muscle density triple that of a human. Combat reflexes enhanced beyond reason. The odds were not just against Ethan. They were non-existent. "Try not to die," Illyra said before the match began. "Comforting," Ethan replied. The arena activated. Within seconds, the Vrax charged. Ethan didn't. He ran. The audience laughed. Pathetic. Coward. Waste of a selection. But Illyra watched closely. Ethan wasn't panicking. He was observing. The Vrax swung. Massive, crushing blows that shattered parts of the arena. Ethan dodged, barely. Again, and again. Not perfectly, but enough. Then something changed. Ethan began using the environment. Loose debris, reflections, angles. He baited the Vrax into overcommitting, crashing into unstable structures. The crowd's laughter faded. Minutes passed. Then, impossibly, the wrack slipped. Just for a second. That was all Ethan needed. He didn't overpower his opponent. He outmaneuvered him. A final push sent the massive warrior crashing into an energy barrier. The match ended. Silence. Then, shock. Middle, the truth about weakness. Ethan collapsed after the fight, gasping. I think I broke something, he wheezed. Aelira stood over him. You did not win through strength, she said. Yeah, I noticed. You adapted. Ethan gave a weak grin. It's kind of our thing. That was when Aelira began to understand. Humanity's hidden weapon. Over the following cycles, Ethan was tested again and again. Each time, the opponents grew stronger. Each time, the odds grew worse. And each time, Ethan survived. Not because he was stronger, not because he was faster, but because he refused to think like the others. Where alien species relied on instinct, programming, or rigid strategy, humans improvised. They failed, learned, and tried again, often within the same battle. Ethan turned losses into lessons, pain into data, fear into fuel. Other champions began to notice. He is inefficient, one said. He is unpredictable, said another. Aelira corrected them. He is evolving. The breaking point, not everyone was impressed. The Vrak's Dominion, humiliated by Ethan's first victory, demanded a rematch. This time, they sent their best. A warlord known as Grathkor. He was faster, smarter, and far more brutal than the first opponent. This will end your experiment. A Vrak's delegate sneered at Aelira. She did not respond, but for the first time, she felt uncertainty. The fight that changed everything, the arena, was different this time. Larger. Deadlier. Designed for maximum destruction. Ethan stood at the center, visibly tense. Grathkor entered with a roar. You embarrass my kind, the warlord growled. Now you will pay. Ethan swallowed. Yeah, that sounds about right. The match began. Grathkor didn't rush. He studied, adapted. For the first time, Ethan was the one being outplayed. Within seconds, he was hit. Hard. The crowd leaned forward. Another strike. Ethan staggered. A third. He hit the ground. Aelira's hands clenched slightly. Get up, she whispered. Ethan didn't move. Grathkor approached slowly. It ends, he said. Then Ethan laughed. Weakly. Painfully. But unmistakably. You know, he coughed, pushing himself up. You guys all make the same mistake. Grathkor frowned. And what is that? Ethan wiped blood from his mouth. You think the fight is the test. He straightened. It's not. The arena shifted. Ethan had noticed something. A flaw. A subtle instability in the environment's energy grid. He had been mapping it while getting beaten. You think strength wins, Ethan said. But systems break. He triggered it. A chain reaction. Energy surged. Barriers flickered. Grathkor stumbled as the arena itself turned against him. Ethan didn't attack directly. He let the system do it. Moments later, the warlord was down, defeated. The galaxy begins to notice this time. The silence wasn't disbelief. It was something else. Fear. A species that could turn weakness into strategy, pain into advantage, defeat into victory, was not weak. It was dangerous. Aelira's realization, you knew, Ethan said later, sitting beside Aelira. You knew I'd pick something like this. Aelira considered. I suspected. Why me? She looked at him. Because you are not exceptional. Ethan blinked. Wow. Thanks. You are average, she continued. And that is your strength. He frowned. I don't follow. Aelira gestured toward the stars beyond the conclave. Exceptional individuals create predictable patterns. They rely on what makes them strong. She paused. But average individuals must constantly adapt. Ethan leaned back. Yeah, that sounds about right. The final test, the Conclave, now deeply unsettled, issued one final challenge. Not a duel. A war simulation. Multiple champions. Full-scale conflict. Ethan would face not one opponent, but many. And this time, there would be no environment to exploit. No easy weaknesses. Only strategy. The war game Ethan was given a small fleet. Inferior ships. Limited resources. His opponents? The best commanders from across the galaxy. The match began. Within minutes, Ethan's fleet was outnumbered, outgunned, outmatched. Any ideas? One of his allied commanders asked nervously. Ethan stared at the tactical display. Then he smiled.
Yeah, he said.
We lose. The commander stared at him. What? We lose, Ethan repeated. But not the way they expect. Turning defeat into victory, Ethan split his fleet. Sacrificed ships. Retreated strategically. Every move looked like failure. The enemy advanced confident, aggressive, predictable. Then, Ethan struck. Not where they were strong, but where they weren't looking. Supply lines, communication nodes, coordination systems. He didn't fight the enemy fleet. He dismantled it.
Piece by piece.
By the time they realized what was happening, it was too late. Ending. The regret the simulation ended. Ethan stood victorious. The chamber was silent. Then the overseer spoke. The human champion has surpassed all projections. No one argued. No one laughed. Because now, they understood. Humanity wasn't the weakest species. It was the most dangerous kind. The kind that didn't need strength to win. The kind that learned, adapted,
survived,
and eventually overcame everything. Epilogue later, as the stars stretched endlessly before them, Ethan sat beside Aelira once more. So he said, "What now?" Aelira looked at him, then at the galaxy. "Now," she said quietly, "they prepare for your kind." Ethan raised an eyebrow. Should they be worried? Aelira's expression softened, just slightly. Yes. She paused. Very. Ethan chuckled. Good. And somewhere, across the vast expanse of the galaxy, civilizations began rewriting their definitions of power. Because one truth had become impossible to ignore. They had mocked humanity for being weak. And in doing so, they had made the greatest mistake of all. The conclave did not adjourn immediately. It couldn't. For the first time in recorded cycles, no one spoke, not out of protocol, but because none of them knew what to say. The tactical projections still hovered in the air, fractured enemy fleets, collapsed command structures, and the unmistakable signature of Ethan Cade's strategy, chaos, turned into precision. The overseer dimmed the display. The simulation is complete, it said. All metrics confirm total systemic victory. A crystalline delegate shifted, its facets flickering uneasily. This is an anomaly. No, Aelira said calmly. It is a pattern. That single word echoed through the chamber.
Pattern.
Not luck. Not accident. Something repeatable. Something dangerous. The question no one wanted to ask. What happens, a voice finally said, when there are more of them? The chamber fell colder. Because Ethan Cade was not a general. Not a genetically engineered warrior. Not even the best humanity had to offer. He was average. And that was the problem. If this was what an average human could do, what would the exceptional ones be capable of? A quiet conversation. Far from the chamber, Ethan stood alone on a viewing platform, staring into the endless field of stars. For the first time since being taken from Earth, everything was quiet. No arena, no opponents, no expectations. Just space. Aelira approached silently. "You are thinking," she observed. Ethan shrugged. "Yeah, about how insane all this is." She stood beside him. "You have altered the balance of the conclave." Ethan gave a soft laugh. "I'm a maintenance guy. I fix pipes and broken systems. I didn't exactly plan to shake the galaxy." Aelira turned slightly. "And yet that is exactly what you did." Ethan leaned against the railing. "Funny thing is," he said, "I didn't win because I was strong." "I know. I didn't win because I was smarter either." Aelira didn't respond. Ethan looked out at the stars again. "I won because I kept messing up and didn't stop." That made her pause. Because in all her calculations, all her projections, failure had always been a variable to minimize. But humans? They used it. The hidden truth of humanity. "What is your species' greatest strength?" Aelira asked. Ethan thought for a long moment. Then he smiled slightly. "We don't quit when things stop making sense." Aelira studied him. "Explain." Ethan gestured outward. "Most species here, they evolve to be efficient, right? Strong, fast, logical." "Yes." "But humans," he said, "we're kind of a mess." He chuckled. "We panic. We guess. We improvise. We try stupid things." Aelira's expression didn't change, but her attention sharpened. "And sometimes," Ethan added, "those stupid things work." Silence settled again, because that was not something the conclave had prepared for. The decision. Back in the chamber, the debate had begun. This human cannot be allowed to return with knowledge of our systems. They are too unpredictable. They will destabilize the balance. Preemptive containment is advisable. The word hung heavily. Containment. Aelira entered just as the final conclusion was forming. "You are considering war," she said. The overseer responded. "We are considering survival." Aelira's gaze swept across the chamber. "You believe one human represents a threat?" "No," the overseer said. "We believe what he represents is a dangerous proposal." Aelira stepped forward. "Then you misunderstand the situation." Murmurs rippled again. She continued. "If you move against humanity now, you will unify them." "And that is a risk," one delegate replied. "It is not a risk," Aelira said. "It is a certainty of failure." Silence. "You have seen what one human can do when tested," she continued. "Imagine billions, all adapting, all learning, all responding to a common threat." No one spoke, because they could imagine it, and it was not a scenario they would win. Ethan's unexpected role. "What do you propose?" the overseer asked. Aelira paused. Then, "We do not suppress them. We engage them." The chamber reacted instantly. "Impossible. Reckless. Unacceptable." Aelira raised her voice, just slightly. "We learn from them." That stopped everything. A new kind of power. Later, Ethan was summoned once more. He walked into the chamber, far more confident than the first time. Still human. Still imperfect. But no longer underestimated. "So," he said, glancing around, "am I in trouble?" "No," the overseer replied. "You are under consideration." Ethan blinked. "That sounds worse." Aelira almost smiled. "The offer. You will return to your world," the overseer said. Ethan exhaled in relief. "Good. But," it continued, "you will act as a bridge." Ethan frowned. "A what?" "A representative. A point of contact between your species and the conclave." He stared at them. "You want me to represent humanity?" "Yes." Ethan laughed. You guys really don't understand humans yet, do you? Explain, the overseer said. Ethan shook his head. I'm not special. That's the whole point. Precisely, Aelira said.
He stopped.
You represent your species more accurately than any exceptional individual would. Ethan opened his mouth and closed it, because for once, he didn't have a counterargument. The realization, as he stood there, surrounded by beings who once dismissed him entirely, Ethan finally understood something. This had never been about him. Not really. It was about what he proved. That strength wasn't always visible. That intelligence wasn't always measurable. That the most dangerous force in the galaxy was the one no one took seriously. A final exchange. As the chamber began to disperse, Ethan turned to Aelira. So, you picked me because I was average. Yes. And that somehow worked out. Yes. He crossed his arms. You're either a genius or incredibly lucky. Aelira tilted her head. In your species, are those mutually exclusive? Ethan grinned. Not even a little. Return to Earth. The transition back to Earth was quiet. No grand explosion of light. No dramatic arrival. Just one moment, Ethan stood among stars. The next, he was back in the same dim industrial corridor. The same broken coolant pipe. The same flickering lights. He stared at it, then left. Of course. He picked up his tools. But this time, he wasn't just fixing a pipe. He was carrying the weight of something much bigger. The first signal. 3 days later, the signal came. Not to governments. Not to militaries. But to Ethan. A small device, left behind by Aelira, activated. A single message appeared. They're watching. What will your kind do? Ethan stared at it, then leaned back in his chair. Honestly, he muttered. He smiled. We'll figure it out as we go. The galaxy watches. Far beyond Earth, in the silent depths of space, the conclave observed. They expected chaos, conflict, instability. What they saw instead was something far more unsettling. Humanity didn't react with uniform precision. There was no perfect response, no singular strategy. Instead, there were thousands, millions, different ideas, different approaches, different mistakes. And slowly, patterns emerged, solutions formed, progress happened. Not cleanly, not efficiently, but relentlessly. The final truth. Aelira stood once more before the stars. Another delegate approached her. You were right, it admitted. Aelira did not respond immediately. They are not the strongest, the delegate continued.
No, she said.
They are not the smartest either.
No.
The delegate hesitated. Then what are they? Aelira watched as a distant human probe, primitive by conclave standards, entered interstellar space.